Let's take a look at conversion factors and how they work and when we might want to use them. So first of all, conversion factors are used when we're converting between units of measurement. So you might be converting units of distance or mass or time, and you want to go from one type of measurement to another. So you'll use a conversion factor. There's a really cool term for this, one of my favorite in all of math. Sometimes we run across the term dimensional analysis, which sounds like we should be doing some sort of time travel or something. But really, it's just about converting units using a conversion factor. So this word conversion and this word factor, we put them together and get a conversion factor. Conversion is changing from one form to another. That's what it means to convert. Factor means multiplication. So a conversion factor is something we're going to use to multiply to convert from one unit of measurement to another. So conversion factors are one of the most useful tools in all of mathematics when we're dealing with units of measurement. The reason they work is because of this basic property of math called the multiplication property of 1. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as the multiplicative identity. Multiplicative, that's a fun word. Multiplicative identity. What this property tells us is that if you multiply something by the number 1, you don't change its value. So if I take the number 5 and I multiply it by 1, I get 5. Well, that seems pretty obvious. If I multiply something by 1, I get the same thing I started with. But it's a really powerful tool in math, and it's the fundamental reason that conversion factors work. So let's take a look at an example of using a conversion factor to convert between units. We'll start with a fairly straightforward example. I have 3 feet, a measurement of distance, and I want to convert that to some number of inches. Okay, so we know that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. If I have 3 feet, well, 3 times 12 is 36. I must have 36 inches. Well, that's all well and good, and we can do a lot of these small conversions in our head, just do them mentally. But let's take a look at this one to see how a conversion factor allows us to do this mathematically. So the first thing we'll do is take a look at what is a conversion factor and how do we get one? Well, let's put down what we know. 1 foot equals 12 inches. So if 1 foot equals 12 inches, 1 foot and 12 inches are the same thing. Now I'm going to do a little bit of algebra here just by dividing both sides of the equation by 1 foot. And now I get an interesting occurrence. 1 foot divided by 1 foot. Well, 1 foot divided by 1 foot, that's 1. When you divide something by itself, you get 1. So 1 equals 12 inches over 1 foot. Beautiful. What if I took this equation and I divided both sides by 12 inches instead of by 1 foot? Well, then I would have 1 equals 1 foot divided by 12 inches. So notice, 12 inches and 1 foot are the same thing. So dividing something by the same thing is 1. Whether I divide 12 inches by 1 foot or 1 foot by 12 inches, I get the number 1. Here's why that's so important. Because if I multiply something by the number 1, I don't change its value. I can convert units without changing the value of that expression. It's really cool. So I have a new form of the number 1. This fraction here is equivalent to 1. It's just a different form of the number 1. And I've heard another teacher refer to this as a foo-foo, a fancy form of 1. So I'm going to use a fancy form of 1 to convert units. So I'm going to use one of these two conversion factors to convert feet to inches. So let's start with what we're given. We are given 3 feet. My goal is some number of inches. And I'm going to use a conversion factor, conversion to change units, and I see that I have 2 different units in each of these conversion factors. Factor means multiply. So I'm going to be multiplying 3 feet by a conversion factor. We're going to start by turning 3 feet into a fraction. I can simply turn anything into a fraction by putting it over 1. So 3 feet over 1. Now, I'm going to multiply this by a conversion factor. Conversion factor is a fraction with 2 different units of measurement that are equivalent. 1 foot is equivalent to 12 inches. 12 inches is equivalent to 1 foot. The question becomes, I've got 2 different conversion factors here that relate feet and inches. Which one will I use? Well, if you remember from multiplying fractions, we frequently try to cancel factors that appear diagonally in our multiplication. We do the same thing with units of measurement. So if I have feet in the numerator of one fraction, and then I have feet in the denominator of the other fraction, they will cancel out. So I look for the conversion factor that has feet in the denominator, and I'm going to put that here. 1 foot, and I see I have 12 inches over 1 foot. Now that I have feet in the numerator here and denominator here, those cancel out. And I'm left with the unit of measurement that I wanted, inches. So now I do straight multiplication across. This is fractions. I multiply the numerators. 3 times 12 is 36. And I still have my inches. The denominators are just 1, so that doesn't matter. I have 36 inches over 1, which is just 36 inches. Beautiful. Sometimes I use multiple conversion factors. Let's consider this scenario. 2 miles per hour is a rate of speed, and I want to convert that into feet per minute. So I will need to convert miles, a unit of measurement for distance, into feet, another unit of measurement for distance. And I will need to convert hours, a unit of measurement for time, into minutes, another unit of measurement for time. So let's start just by using our rate of speed here and writing it as a fraction. 2 miles over 1 hour. 2 miles per hour. And now I'm going to use a conversion factor to convert miles to feet. You might remember that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. Maybe you don't. The cool thing is you can always look it up if you don't really remember. So that means I have a conversion factor of either 5,280 feet over 1 mile or 1 mile over 5,280 feet. Which one of these do I want to use? Yes, I want to use the first one because I see I have miles in the numerator here and I want to be able to cancel it out with miles in the denominator of the other fraction. So my fraction here, my conversion factor, I want miles in the numerator to cancel with miles in the denominator. So I look at the conversion factor that has miles in the denominator. That's this one. So I have 5,280 feet over 1 mile. Beautiful. So we can just pause for a moment and see what happens with the units canceling out. Miles cancel out with miles, and notice I'm left with feet. That's the target I'm looking for in my final units of measurement. So now I've got time. So you probably know there's 60 minutes in an hour. So I have 60 minutes equals 1 hour, which gives me 2 possible conversion factors. I could have 60 minutes over 1 hour, or I could have 1 hour over 60 minutes. These both have a value of 1, which is why I can multiply this expression by either of these. The value is 1, and it's not going to change the value of my expression. It will just change the units of measurement. So let's pick which conversion factor to use. I have hours in the denominator of my original rate, so I want hours in the numerator of the conversion factor. So which one of these two will you use? You got it. The second one, hours in the numerator. So I have hours here and minutes here. So we relate hours and minutes. 1 hour is the same as 60 minutes. You'll notice 1 hour over 60 minutes, the value of this fraction is 1. It's a foo-foo. It allows me to multiply without changing the value, just with changing the units of measurement. So let's look at what units cancel out. I see I've got hours here and hours here, denominator, numerator. Those go away. So what we're left with is simply a multiplication situation where I multiply straight across. So 2 times 5,280 times feet. So I know I have feet here. Let's see, 5,280 times 2, 16, 1, 2 is 5, and then, all right, it looks like I have 10,560 feet over 1 times 1 times 60 minutes, 60 minutes. So that's 10,560 feet in 60 minutes. So this is a rate of speed. Perhaps you would like to write it as a unit rate. A unit rate means the denominator will be 1. So if we want to know feet per 1 minute, we want this denominator to be 1 minute. So to make this denominator 1 minute, I would divide both the numerator and denominator by 6. So let's do that here. I have 10,560 I divide the numerator and denominator by 60, not 6. So 60 goes into 105 once, 60. Subtract, I get 45, bring down the 6. 60 goes into 456 7 times. 7 times 60 is 420. I now have 36, bring down the 0. 60 goes into 366 times. So it looks like this would end up being 176 feet per minute. So what I've done is I started with a rate of speed that had 2 units. I used 2 different conversion factors to convert to a different rate of speed using the other units of measurement that I wanted, and then I converted that rate of speed into a unit rate, 176 feet per minute. That is a cool use of conversion.